The music which you'll be listening to in this episode are by Yousef Kekhia. He's a Berlin-based Syrian singer, songwriter and producer originally from Aleppo. And I spoke to him about his debut album, Monologue, and why it moved me so much. It is a conversation about very difficult topics, about his life so far, his journey as a refugee, first leaving Aleppo to go to Istanbul, and then from Istanbul on his way to Berlin where he's currently based. We spoke about the lyrics of his album, about the themes which touch upon such things as mental health, borders, grief, and the importance of healing. And that's really it, I guess. So as usual, you can follow the podcast on Twitter @FireTheseTimes, and if you like what I do, please consider supporting this project with only $1 a month on Patreon or on buymeacoffee.com, and you can also do so directly on PayPal if you prefer. Patreon is for monthly, PayPal is for one-offs, and Buy Me a Coffee has both options. And if you cannot donate, you can still help by reviewing this podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. So the first song is called Hel Ord Lamin, Who Owns This Earth? And if you don't speak Arabic, you'll be able to find the English lyrics on the blog post. Thank you for your time.
سال حالك من فكرة الحدود كسور سجنك بينحط لحروب رفع راسك منك لاجئ بحور الأرض ما لها حدود هالأرض لمين هالأرض لمين هالأرض لمين هالأرض لمين هروب سياسة تهجير مع ورقة باسبور بتوقعك بالبير معقول كل حدود كل هالتأثير مشان يشعلوا حروب ونعيش ميتين هالأرض لمين هالأرض لمين هالأرض لمين هالأرض لمين هالأرض لمين
So I'm Yousef Kekhia. I'm a singer-songwriter, producer, originally from Syria and now based in Berlin since more than 3 years. And yeah, that's it, I guess.
Well, the main topic, in a sense, of this conversation is going to be surrounding your debut album, Monologue. So can we start with you telling us a bit about this album, like the process behind it, you know, maybe some of the themes that you were trying to tackle?
So yeah, Monologue is a project that I started writing around 2014, 2015 when I was in Turkey. And I remember, I guess, the really like the beginning of it, where I wrote the song Shiyom, I think one of the first songs that I've ever written. And then it was just like, you know, trying to write songs. And then I wrote the Cancerous song where when I got diagnosed with my cancer the first time in 2014, and after writing this song I kind of felt okay, I have an kind of an idea of what I want to do with the songs that I write. And then I wrote the song Hal Ard Lamin afterwards, when the whole crazy refugee crisis happened, and I think it's the day where the little child Alan was found on the beach. And
Alan Kurdi.
yeah, I think that moved me so much. I think that's the beginning where I felt okay, I need to be political, not just do music and listen to them, like do music like the music we used to listen to. But more trying to be political. And I mean, as a person also affected by politics and by being a refugee and having to go in places, and someone also being someone that never believed, even before I was personally affected, never believed in the concept of borders, never understood it, actually, to be fully honest, never understood all these concepts from nationalities and religions, and how can be someone, how can we discriminate other people, and how can be someone seen or looked at or given rights other than the other people. And so it was not really a planned ideas. It's ideas that exist inside of you, and then you also go through them personally. So you have all these themes about the borders, and in songs like Al Ard Lamin and El Tair, and you might hear it here and there. And the whole album is political, but at the same time very personal. I have stories that I've been through being a refugee or being someone who had to flee from war, but at the same time trying to live normal things like relationships and just experiencing the feelings that everybody experience, like falling in love and being heartbroken in the time of not having a decent passport, let's say, and all these matters. And of course, another main topic with me is the cancer, as I was diagnosed twice, 2014 and 3 months ago.
And you say you're going through treatment now.
I finished. This time was very, like, much better, the prognosis.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and it's just it's not a reoccurrence. It's just a second testicle cancer, which can happen, but
okay.
rare. But the prognosis is really, really good, and they found it really at the beginning, so we just had to remove it and do radiation just in case. And until now, the second checkups came all good, so I'm on surveillance again. So
amazing. That's good to hear.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Hal Ard Lamin, which in English can be translated as "Who owns this earth?" or like "Who does this earth belong to?"
Yeah.
It's the first song that I heard,
Yeah.
the first single that you released, and I was extremely moved by it. As soon as when I listened to it, I shared it with everyone, and it was so. I will share a bit of my own context. I'm from Lebanon, as listeners know by now because I keep on repeating it. And Lebanon, I'm currently a migrant in Europe, but I'm not a refugee, so my experience is adjacent, but obviously not the same. I'm not under any immediate threats, let's say, but I'm the son of parents who did flee a war, the civil war of the 70s and 80s.
Definitely.
And I grew up with these stories in a sense. My father was he was a Red Cross volunteer. He witnessed some of the massacres during the war. It definitely marked him, and he left after the war and moved to Switzerland, where I currently am as well. When I listened to the song, I was walking through the nearby woods where I live, and I know, no, I since learned. I saw some of the videos on YouTube that you also go on long walks through the woods, and you have a thing for mushrooms, and so what I wanted to ask is when okay, first let me just read I'll read the English translation for those listening of Hal Ard Lamin. I have it in front of me.
Yeah.
So ask yourself about the concept of borders. Break your prison. Who wrote those orders? Raise your head. You're not a refugee of the oceans. Roam wherever you want because this earth has no borders. And then of course you talk about passports, and the underlying theme is there are obstacles, the borders, the passports, the documents that separate us essentially, and you trying to overcoming them through music, overcoming them through physically moving first from Syria to Turkey, then from Turkey to Berlin, where I currently am. Can you talk a bit about the idea of الطير, العصفور in Lebanese, or the bird? Why this animal specifically?
The bird is a very huge symbol for this kind of journey. Let's put it like this. And a friend of mine, Samir Halosai Kalepo, he kind of wrote a whole album about this concept. And I mean, I've been always a big fan of a bird. Like when you were a kid and you would be asked which animal you would want to be, or you would have been, I would say a bird, because it's flying is something has always interested me, and like thinking about this idea of how they immigrate and being interested in nature, and I found myself like really in this some kind of the same metaphor for being an animal as a bird, and so I think I wrote the song kind of in a too like schizophrenic way, because at the same time I'm sitting on his back. I'm not sure. I think I remembered that I dreamed this scene. I think I dreamt this scene that I'm sitting on the back of the bird and he's flying with me. But I didn't dream what I wrote. But then I wrote the song that I'm sitting on his back and he's flying me somewhere, and I'm trying to explain to him the concept of borders, because I really wanted him to understand, or maybe ask him what he thinks about it, or as a bird, what would he feel if he could understand, but he never understood it. And at the same time, in the song, I am kind of the bird himself, because I am someone who flee, who emigrate, and that resembles my journey and the journey of thousands of people. It doesn't have to be only refugees. It's just the whole concept of immigration. So yeah, it's at the same time you feel that I'm sitting on him and talking with him, and at the same time it feels like, I don't know, for me it's one actually, and it's just a dream. Yeah.
Yeah, the song The Bird, Altair. So you start with you're on top of the bird. I have a bird's eye. I'm also reading the English translation. I have a bird's eye view of a land filled with bounty, but I couldn't see any borders, nor any darkening clouds in the sky. And then you sing, I tried to tell the bird about borders all night long, but he couldn't understand what borders mean, nor how we divide lands with lines. I found that very obviously powerful and moving, and the reason why I related to it, well, I guess the primary reason is because I'm a migrant myself, but it's also because, and here I will segue to the question I wanted to ask about mental health, because you, when I sent you the preliminary like thoughts and everything, you said like let's bring up mental health and let's talk about it, because I'm going through therapy. I once a week, and part of my process, if you want, with dealing with PTSD among other things, is I go walk through the woods, and where I'm very lucky to be living next to woods where there are lots of birds there. So I just end up usually with my camera. I go there completely disconnected. My phone doesn't have data anyway, and I take photos. And at some point I felt that I needed them even closer, so I needed the birds even closer. So what we did is we set up a bird feeder in the balcony. So what's interesting is that now while you talk to me about birds, I can see about half a dozen birds just next to me.
Cool.
Why? So let me ask the question this way. You already answered about the bird, of course, but why? How would you relate this metaphor, which is a real metaphor, and the animal, the bird? How would you relate that and link it to you trying to focus as well with mental health? And the reason why I'm asking this is that you said in the beginning that essentially that the personal is political, which happens to be one of the underlying themes of the podcast as well. The personal is political, the local is global. Can you talk a bit about your own process since I guess since leaving Syria, which you said I think was 2013, and then since leaving Turkey after that?
So when I was in Syria, and also in the times of the revolutions, I was involved, or trying to be as much involved as possible. I was someone who never was interested in politics, and being grown up also in a family that they are interested in politics a lot. They, especially my father and my sister, they would discuss politics most of the times, and I would just find it useless and boring. And when the whole but because of this, I have awareness of the situation, I have awareness of the regime, I have awareness of what is your right as a human beings, what do we miss here, what do we have here, and what exists somewhere else, and blah blah blah, all these things. So when the revolution happened or started, or like even before, when the Arab Spring happened in Tunis and Egypt and Libya, I found myself immediately getting excited and getting like crazy following politics. And then when something happened in Syria, I tried to be involved as much as possible. It's a very long story. I think the 2 years, 2.5 years maybe in Syria until I left, it was the most intensive 2 years of my life. And then to fast forward, I left Syria in a kind of a like not a very perfect situation, but not as bad as maybe compared to a lot of people. I left actually in my own decision. I went for my studies, and then in 2016 And then I had the cancer in 2014, and then I finished my studies in Syria. In Turkey, I studied architecture and I finished my bachelor. And then in 2016, after I graduated, shortly before I came to Germany, I kind of suffered from a lot of episodes of panic attacks and anxiety and depression, you name it. And to go back to your question, nature usually plays a big part of my healing, my calmness. And even when I was in Istanbul, I would have big interest in mushrooms and used to go with a friend of mine who was experienced to collect mushroom and just fell in love actually with nature more and more. That helped for sure a lot for me to calm down. I still do it a lot. I'm also doing therapy, and for me the most important thing for me to deal with these things, the very 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 important thing at the moment is to talk about it, because when it hit me I realized it took actually very long time to realize that I'm actually not alone, and that actually there's a lot of people, most of my friends, they suffer from something that is mental. And mental health doesn't have, not because you are going through something it means there's something wrong with you. It's, I mean, we see especially in European countries how this thing was unappreciated and how nowadays it's considered as important as medicine in a lot of countries, like biological medicines, and we kind of overlooked its importance in medicine and science before, and it's getting bigger and bigger and blah blah blah. So that's why I kind of always feel that I want to talk about it, and I'm trying also to include it in my songs and to talk about it openly with friends or people that I meet, because that's the really most important thing for anybody to know, that we all more or less went through this, or anybody could go through this, whatever it is, and it helps a lot for us and for people to know that it's okay. Everybody goes through this. It's really not a big thing if you go to a therapy or if you ask for help. Yeah. So I think that's basically, and I felt sad a lot of times how people are kind of, it's a taboo, like how people are afraid to talk about it, or they don't really feel comfortable sharing, being open and sharing their stories, which is fine, which is completely fine. I totally understand this, but to give support and to talk about these things openly and to ask for help is incredibly important, I see nowadays, especially in our culture.
Yeah, definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
It's something that, well, I started taking therapy in Lebanon, but yeah, I really started taking it when I moved first to the UK, and then now here I'm in Switzerland, because well, for many reasons really, and I do talk about them in other episodes. What I am curious about your music, one of the reasons basically why I feel that I really related to it is that it's both very personal. Obviously you're talking about your own direct experience, but at the same time you're talking about you're contextualizing the experience. Let's say you're saying you're actually talking about the world. So Hel Lamin, who owns this world, even when you talk about ما في شي بيجمعنا, like nothing unites us, I think the anthem of life as well, لحن الحياة. I'm probably forgetting someone. I have the poster with the lyrics in front of me just so that I don't forget. Why did you, or how did you really you mentioned some of the first songs. You mentioned Hel Lamin, you mentioned Altair, you mentioned Cancerous Cells, but there's a sort of a chronology in a sense where you start with with البداية, with the beginning, but then there's this sort of, actually I'm not even entirely sure how to describe it really. There are a few songs where you describe yourself as a lie. There's a song called Ana al-Kizbe, I am the lie, and then there's a different so let's say this is a mood or this is an emotion, but then you switch to a different one that's related to it with لحن الحياة, the anthem of life. And then there's Nothing Unites Us, and then there's Who Owns. So it's kind of like multiple emotions at once, if that makes sense. And here I'll play لحن الحياة before getting to your answer.
بالشمس شفنا وبعمق البحر عشنا كتبوا الموت لحن الحياة ولما الشمس بتروح والوقت بالفلا موقوف رح يجي يدوم الحياة رح يجي يدوم لحن الحياة
They need to be explained. Actually, that's something I plan, and I was like, the plan was disturbed because of Corona and because of my new diagnosis with the cancer lately.
Yeah.
And the whole crazy thing happened since February. But there are just different reasons for these different emotions. The song Ana al-Kizb is a song where I was in my relationship with my girlfriend back then, who she was living in France, and I was living in Istanbul, and I was not able to. I never visited her in France because of my passport. She's Syrian, but she has another citizenship, so she's more flexible than me. And we went through a long distance relationship for 3 years because of the same reasons again, the borders and the whole thing. And we couldn't see each other very often, and it's kind of a love story that was completely knocked out because of the situation, because of your fucking passport, as easy as it is, and then this relationship had to end. So Ana al-Kizb, I wrote this song when I'm not sure if the last time she visited me or the one before, but I was pretending that everything is fine and that I'm fine. But actually I think I was at the level where I was like really tired of the situation, not being able to really be in this relationship because of my passport and because of because of our situation. It was not at all easy for us to be in the same place together. Maybe also cultural reasons. So yeah, it's a very, very personal. I think this song nobody understood it, or because it's all these sentences inside of it. They mean something to us, and they mean something to this relationship. I love this song a lot, really, and so that's why Ana al-Kizb in this part. It's not so much political, but rather just I'm lying. I'm not really doing good, and I can't help it anymore. But I have to tell you that I'm fine because I don't need you to worry about me. So I wrote this song that I'm sorry, I was a liar, and everything was really hard. And Mafshi Bijmana also, it's a very special song. It's a very, I don't know, I don't know what I feel about this song, because I like it, but I wrote it in a very pessimistic moment where I just have been on Facebook and seen people just arguing and fighting, and just slowly see how the society is and going to be divided because of what's happening in the country, or this idea of that it's not really happening, that we are accepting each other's opinion, and that we are accepting each other in general. Actually, we have problems in accepting each other politically, sexually, all these things. And it's a little bit negative thinking, but it was more like an anger, like a scream out of frustration, but I changed my mind in the future.
And was that before or after the anthem of life, لحن الحياة?
No, before. لحن الحياة, I think it's the only song. Oh no, also Altair. I think they are the only two songs that I wrote in Germany. They are the last two songs I wrote in the album. Maybe لحن الحياة is the last one I wrote. لحن الحياة is also a personal experience that I've gone through. When I was in Germany, my girlfriend's father was also diagnosed with cancer, and he didn't stay with us for a long time, and it was a little bit of an intensive, very sweet story, because they are a very sweet family and they've dealt with it in a very nice way. So لحن الحياة is a kind of an anthem for me to remember that in the moment of grief, if you try to look around, there are so much beauty still exists in life, and maybe one of them is moving on. But at the same time, being inspired by this story that I've lived, with my girlfriend and her family, but also being also someone who dealt with death a lot in Syria, like losing so many people you would know or just was completely around us. There were always stories about deaths. And again, as a person who always constantly think about the possibility or the idea of dying because of being a cancer patient, even if you had a very good prognosis, it's a concept that every now and then creeps into your mind.
You can't
So
avoid it.
so I kind of wrote the song for me to remember or try to remember that life is beautiful, whatever can happen in it.
And I mean, so you just described it beautifully, and this is what I think I managed to get out of the album. That so actually, yeah. Let me ask it this way: depending on, I'm guessing since you've released it, and you know some of these singles are older than the album, of course. What has been some of the reactions that you've seen, and has there been really a difference between, for example, a Syrian, Lebanese, Palestinian, I don't know, other people from the region listening to it? Well, I mean, I guess Arabic would be a must in this case, but maybe someone who's reading the lyrics in English or something. I don't know. Have you seen these kind of differences and anything noteworthy to talk about?
It's mixed, and it's there's not really a way to describe this, because the majority of the people who are listening to the albums, or the majority of the messages that I get is people from Arabic people. Syrian people, that was expected for me. I got a lot of feedback that the album is really beautiful, but it's confronting them to think and to deal with stuff they've been running away since they left home, or since the beginning of the revolution, or like beginning of the war after the revolution, whatever. And yeah, I got a lot of these kind of feedbacks. Since I am in Berlin, and I am someone who always believed that I remember when I tried to write songs, or when I thought about writing songs or trying to put out sentences and melodies together, I thought about, because all my life I have sung in English before, and doing cover music, and mostly doing rock music, and then mostly doing folk music. So
and the covers are on YouTube as well, for those who want to listen.
Yeah, I made a small cover album with a friend of mine.
Yeah.
2014 in Syria with my friend Bishar. So yeah, there you could have an idea of what I used to do as music before I write my own songs, which also the genre completely changed. But yeah, I thought I would want to write in English because that's what I always sung in. But when I tried to write, I kind of felt more, it's not about the linguistic abilities to me so much, but rather the expressional, or like what my soul really feel to say in Arabic language kind of fit more to everything inside of me. I think the story is also, like it's just more connected to my roots, because the stories happened in this language and it happened in this culture, and everything around it is basically evolving around this language. So it felt more natural, and that's how I did it. And yeah, what was your question?
No, you answered it. I'm actually maybe the question of language, you brought it up now. I know from experience and my world in a sense, whether in journalism or in writing in general or others, it's usually around Lebanon, Palestine, Syria. And I know, based on again some of these experiences, especially I think the Lebanese one, that there are some people who end, like some Lebanese writers who end up writing mostly in English or mostly in French, whereas others kind of go the other way and write only in Arabic or mostly in Arabic. And I'm always curious as to the process of how someone switches from one language to the other, or how someone um, just recently I interviewed a friend of Samir Asir, Ziad Majid, and Samir Asir used to be someone who wrote primarily in French and then switched to Arabic. And I'm always curious about the changes, I guess. What are some of the changes that you can think of from first having this cover album that's in English, and then having your own album, the debut album that's in Arabic? Are there certain things that you feel that you can say more in Arabic, or even maybe certain things that you can say more in English? I don't know, maybe some of the other languages. Have you kind of thought about it this way, in the how the switches how the changes in languages actually affects either your moods, how you're thinking about something, how deep you can get into something, maybe?
I think I'm not I'm not at all a patriotic person, but I feel expressions in Arabic are more. You have images in Arabic that it's very hard to build them in English, and that's something I mean I really like the Arabic language. When I was in school, even when I was not a very good student, I was good at the Arabic course class, and I liked poetry, and I still like it, and I liked Arab, where you explain what is what and why does it exist. It's kind of mathematic, but at the same time poetic, very poetic. I mean, this is something that I find myself, I don't know, lucky that I have it, just because I am an Arabic person and I studied Arabic in school and blah blah blah. But when I started writing, I didn't feel a change because I didn't write in English really. Like I wrote maybe 2 songs, they were just for fun in English, and nothing. I don't believe they were good ones, and didn't really try to write in English. So when I started writing, it's like a newborn baby. You just never tried things, and now you are trying them. So there's nothing to compare to in the past. And singing wise, I think it's a little bit different. It's a little bit weird because I sing in Arabic, but I have all these scales and way of singing that comes from the Western folk music or indie folk, whatever you want to call it. Not the Arabic notes or scales or the way you sing in Arabic, like tarab, and you have this quarter notes, kind of vibrato kind of singing. I don't do them. I don't have them. I never trained for them. I actually don't know how to do them, to be honest, not really singing in Arabic, and that's something a lot of people don't know, that yes, I sing in Arabic, but I don't really actually sing the Arabic way. That was the for me, just switching the musically it sounded the same to me, just a different language, and I think that was cool.
Well, I mean, in some ways that is an act of translation as well, even if it's not necessarily from English to Arabic. It can be from the English style, or not English, but like Western style to Arabic style, or at least singing it in Arabic. There's one question I wanted to ask before, but I kind of forgot. Of course, you hinted at it a few times, and you mentioned it, that the impact of the 2011, well, the Arab Spring in general, and then especially obviously the Syrian revolution. Now we're talking 9 years on, which is, it's a bit incredible to say it actually. But I personally started paying attention to what was happening in Syria, well, early on, but especially as of 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And as it happens, you just said that this is around that time when you left Syria to go to Turkey first, and then obviously then Germany.
Mm-hmm.
The you I mean, feel free to go into as many details as you want or not. You know, obviously as much as you feel comfortable with this.
Mm-hmm.
The scale of the suffering and the pain and the difficulties that well, Syrians have experienced since 2011, that's very difficult to put into words. I don't know if it's easier or more difficult to put into music specifically. I don't know, because I'm not a musician. I do listen to a lot of music, and somehow I do feel that when I listen to albums like yours,
Mm-hmm.
it makes more sense in a way. Like, it explains the things that I'm thinking about, if I'm thinking about Syria especially, obviously, but you know, also when I'm thinking a bit about Lebanon, we have this worry that things can get worse at some point, so we don't really know how worse is worse.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always in the back of my mind in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know if I have a question there. I have
yeah.
is it a fair sorry, yeah.
Do you want to say something?
No, I was gonna say, like, is it a fair assessment of what I'm trying, like, does it make sense basically what I'm trying to get at here?
Definitely. I mean, that's a topic I discussed with many people, especially musicians. Like, why was it hard for us to create art and music during these 9 years? I look around and there aren't actually so many examples that are like, it's very hard to talk about this because it's a sensitive topic. With all my respect to everyone, I even myself, I think when we tried to create something, it wasn't that political. It wasn't that we didn't talk about our wounds and our uprising and our sufferings and our dreams openly,
Right.
because we suffered a lot.
Yeah.
Because I think what happened in Syria is something not normal to happen. Not only now, but even throughout history, it's something overwhelming for historians. So just imagine what it would be for people who have zero experience in politics because they were never allowed to talk about politics, and for people who have had like a very stable life out of politics and wars and all this crazy world that we were never part of, and suddenly we were just the most affected by all these systems and all the whole idea of how we as humans, not only in Syria, like not only talking about war and violence and all these things, but we as a people of Earth, how much we fucked it up. And it felt like the whole dirty games in the world just suddenly started to happen in Syria. And you have, again, in Syria you have a very big local problem with a very fascist regime, with you know the story, and people not at all experienced in politics, and you have people who supported the regime because of their benefits or whatever, because of what they believed, and then all these factors made it very hard experience for everyone. And of course there are people who wrote about it and tried to do but I asked myself, and I talked with people about it, the other experiences, the Lebanese, the Egyptian, and also the Jordanian. I mean, they didn't. It's stupid to complain all these, because every country has their own experience they had to go through. But the Syrian scene was especially very much suffering to produce something and to give something out of ourselves to the world. And I think what I explained could be a big reason out of it. So I don't know. I don't know if these are really the reasons. I don't know if you can also discuss that we grew up in a society and we grew up under a system that art or music in general wasn't really there. And I say society because even parents and families, music is something, I don't know, you just do as a hobby, and an incredible small hobby. It shouldn't affect your anything in your life, you know. It's just number 10 priority in a kid life. So these also can happen, can influence all these reasons. I don't know, but 9 years, and for me personally, not a lot of production in this part is something to be considered. It's something to be looked at. And I don't know what will happen in the future, but for me it's totally understandable, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
On a sort of closing-ish note, is there anything that you wanted us to talk about that I didn't approach or we didn't talk about?
I'm not sure. No, I don't know.
Well,
maybe not.
The other thing I wanted to ask you then is, what are some of your future projects that you wanted to talk about or to let people know? What can we look forward to?
Yeah, that's something to talk about. At the moment, I'm working on an EP. Will be called Epilogue, which is kind of a continuity of Monologue and hopefully a closing page for this phase. It's gonna be a small album EP, 4 or 5 songs maximum, and I'm also working on an electronic project, which might take longer, might not. I'm not sure which one will go out actually first, because there's also a new song that I've been in like regarding the last incidents of George Floyd in the US and the Black Lives Matter thing we are trying to do and support at the moment. I went to the demonstration in Berlin supporting the case, and I went back also very emotional, and I wrote a song about it, and the song might be released soon. It's more electronic, not really my tunes. I will just release it as a single and hopefully try to do something about what's happening. And otherwise that's it. I'm doing also Patreon. I don't know if you saw. Maybe
yes,
it would be nice to talk about it a bit.
Yes, go ahead.
It's just something that I plan to do more often as well. It's definitely connected to my music, and for those who don't know, Patreon is a platform to support independent artists, like a crowdfunding campaign, but on a long basis. And I think it's kind of blogging for me, but not really doing podcasts and talking and doing videos where I talk, but rather just sharing intimate songs, spontaneous songs and videos that are not necessarily going to be in albums or official releases and something like this. So it's just very personal, intimate sharing of music, jammings, covers, and some sneak peeks to my music, and that's it. So if anybody's interested, they can go to the Patreon link page. I think we can put it out in the description, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool.
Awesome. Yousef, thank you for your time.
Cool. Thanks for having me. Appreciate
My pleasure.
It. Was a nice talk.
So thank you for listening, and here's the final song, El Ter.
شوف من فوق الطير عبلاد مليانة خير بس ما قدرت شوف حدود إني السما بس غيوم بالهجرة محكوم الطير عالبحر بالأرض بالليل وجناحهم البرد مكسور وصوته يدو مسموع فجأة طلعت الشمس وغلت طير حريثة منها الويل ثمنها الويل خبروا للطير عن الحدود طول الليل بس ما فهم شو يعني حدود كيف منقسم بلاد بخطوط فيقني بس نوصل يا طير السلام والحب عالبيت